Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This week's video is all about distracted students. Hey, welcome along to another academic video. If you're new, hi, my name is Caroline. I'm a UK lecturer based here. Well, I'm a lecturer based in the UK and I teach and I research in physics. This week's video, I thought we could maybe look at when you have to teach a university class, but you find yourself with, and I'm going to call it, distracted students. So you may be giving a lecture or a seminar, and for some reason, not all of the students are paying 100% attention on you. And they might be mildly distracted, they could just be like talking to their friends quietly, they could be blatantly watching something on their computer, a TV show or something, or they could be actually creating a bit of a disturbance. And it's up to you as the lecturer to work out what you're going to do with these distracted university students. When we start teaching at university, you have this idea that, of course, all the students are going to be there because they want to study that particular subject. That's going to be their passion. They're all going to be listening attentively to every single word that you say at the front of the lecture theatre. And, ideally, that's what you would have, the situation, but that isn't always going to be the case. And students might be distracted for a whole variety of reasons. It could be that there is an exam coming up after your class, and people are more concerned or worried about the exam than actually hearing everything you're saying in that lecture. It could be that something's happened that week on the course, some marks have been released or some particular coursework has come out, and that's causing a lot of chatter in your classroom. It could be that students have actually got other priorities going on outside the lecture theatre. They may be doing something socially or sports-based, and that's basically going to be more entertaining and fun than whatever material it is that you're trying to teach. They're thinking about that activity rather than the class. And sometimes you might just find students are just going to be disruptive. There's going to be something going on and it will just pull the attention of the students away, and they will be either loud or talking or impacting the others around them so they can't listen and hear. And as I said, you as the lecturer need to deal with whatever situation that you're going to be faced, because quite often as academics, we are the only person in that room lecturing at the front giving the class. Even when I'm teaching a particular module course with 2 or 3 other academics, usually only one of us is giving a lecture at any one time. So you're kind of on your own at the front there. You've got to figure out a solution in real time to make sure that everyone gets maximum information out of your lesson. I think students might sometimes forget that we as lecturers and academics have also been undergraduate students. I've sat in lecture theatres. I've had lecture experiences where we're all paying attention really closely. I've had ones where there has been disturbances in the lectures. I remember once there was a paper aeroplane that got flown down, and I think it almost hit the lecturer, which was slightly unfortunate. I did not launch the paper aeroplane. So, we have seen unsettledness in the lecture theatre. So what do you do if you're the academic and you've got noise and chatter and distracted students? I try a range of tactics to keep the students engaged and listening to what I'm saying. So if I can prevent students from becoming distracted in the first place, I then don't have to deal with it. So I will always avoid trying to give just a straight monologue type lecture. My material, I'm a physicist, it lends itself to having problems and quizzes and demonstrations and discussion points alongside the derivations and the technical content. And I try to change the rhythm and the flow of the lecture so that students are always being kept engaged and a little bit kind of wondering what's coming next. I don't want them just to be able to necessarily settle back and just think, oh, well, I'm going to listen to some material for the next hour and I'll be out doing my thing in the afternoon I want to really do. I'd much rather have a lecture that has some fast bits, some slow bits, some pace where I want the students to be involved in what's happening, just to try to keep that engagement up. I also will try to give points in my lecture times when it's okay for students to be talking to each other and it's okay for them to be looking at their smartphones. Because I think if you have those moments in your lecture, it can then help students to focus on the bits that you need them to listen to without looking at their phones or chatting to each other. So, I will do something and then have a few minutes of a discussion point where I'll ask them to work with their people around them to solve something or explore something or form a viewpoint on something. And that kind of breaks the I'm just listening to the lecturer, and it means they get the chance to talk, use their phones potentially if they need to look up information. I'll try and include breaks in my lectures so they can stretch their legs. I'm just trying to create a space where they are less likely to become distracted because what they're listening to is engaging and hopefully interesting. You can't do that all the time. Sometimes you have to give long derivations or long explanations. So it's not something you can do in every single lecture, but I try where possible to create that rhythm of interest in my content. If, of course, I have got a situation where students are distracted, my go-to is to try to avoid a direct confrontation, because I don't necessarily think that has an easy or successful outcome for both the student and yourself. I'd much rather try to tackle it in a quieter way so the student doesn't feel they're embarrassed or singled out in front of their year group. I encourage students to sit nearer the front of the lecture theatre. I once got allocated a huge lecture theatre with the number of students I had, and they were very scattered, and typically students will gravitate maybe towards the half to 2/3 back of the lecture theatre. And so I tried to bring them slightly forward if possible, because I think if you've got a class that's physically nearer to you, it's easier to look up and kind of catch people's eyes and make sure that we have got some kind of engagement going on. If somebody is talking loudly or doing lots of stuff that's distracting, it's much easier than just to be able to look up and catch their eye. And usually that's all you need for them to then get back on track and listening to the material. The other thing you can do is you can talk to the other academics about how they're finding that particular year group in other lectures, in other classes. So you may find that you have a lecture class that you have got maybe some students that get distracted easily or are slightly disruptive, and it's worth checking with other academics, are they finding the same thing? Is it just the particular material that you're teaching that they're struggling to engage with? Or is it wider? Is it the whole kind of year they're having problems with? And actually maybe there's something underneath that's causing that issue and causing them to be distracted. They may not realize that they're doing it. They may have concerns, problems, issues that are just dominating their thought pattern, and they're maybe not aware of the distraction they're causing inside a lecture theatre. Of course, some students as well are just generally having a good time. They've got a new friendship group, they're at university, they've got newfound freedoms in their life, and actually they're just having fun with their newfound friends, and they don't realize that loudness is coming across as being distracting. But one thing that I am, I guess, firm on it, is that I won't allow others to change the learning environment so that it impacts the ability of my students to be able to learn. We have to pay in the UK now, considerable sums of money for tuition fees to get yourself into that university environment. And it's not fair if you're the student wanting to listen and to learn to the material to have somebody, 1 or 2 rows down making a noise and not being able to focus on what's being said. So I just won't allow that to happen. I haven't had to, but if you're having real difficulties with an element of the class, you can call in another tutor to join the lesson. You can ask them to sit within the audience. They can sit near the element that's likely to be disruptive, and they're there to provide you with some support to try to help keep the class quiet and attentive. And I think it's really important that when you have a new class, you kind of set your boundaries for what you expect the lecture environment to be like before you go too far into your lecture series. It's much easier to set that kind of conditions of learning that you want at the beginning rather than trying to get it halfway through that semester. So, if I have noisy, chatty classes, I will stop the lecture in those first kind of couple of sessions. I'll remind everybody that we are all here to listen to the material, and that we do need to have that kind of quiet space so everyone can hear effectively what I'm saying. I have been known to just stop my derivation before. I just stop writing and I look up and I wait for the lecture theatre to get quiet again, and then I'll go back into my derivation. And as the academic, you want to enjoy the experience of being able to give a lecture, right? You shouldn't be having to battle with the lecture theatre. You are hopefully teaching the subject that you love to students that in the main also are interested and enjoy that subject. So, really that kind of university space should be a fun, dynamic classroom space for you to be able to operate in. And as I said, pretty much all of the time, it is. It's only going to be occasional moments, hopefully, in your academic career where you have to face those little disturbances. And I think if you can have tactics in mind for how you're going to address them or what your plan is going to be, you can then nip them in the bud and then get that environment back into that learning space that you want to be in. But, let me know. Are you a lecturer? Do you face that worry of having students that maybe aren't listening to you at all times? Do you find it difficult to kind of, I guess, control that learning environment, that learning space, and make sure that it's focused on the class material? Are all your students listening intently to every single word that you said? Is it like that beautiful, idealized what we'd see, or at the movies classroom where everyone's being just like impeccably behaved at all times? As I said, in the main, my teaching experiences have been really, really positive. Really good students, really engaged with the material. It's a fun space to teach in. So I don't tend to dwell or worry or get concerned about it, because as I said, in the main, it's actually a really nice environment to be a lecturer. But let me know in the comments, how do you find disruptive students? As always, I really do love reading your comments. It's lovely to see this little academic space here on YouTube and the different perspectives that we all have. So do think about giving us a follow, do hit subscribe, completely free to join in the academic conversation. Have a wonderful week. Do keep looking after yourselves. We're enjoying a bit of a heat wave now in the UK, so I'm off to try to cool down and do some work. But have a lovely week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.